Hey everyone, and welcome. We're about to go on an absolutely epic journey through 5,000 years of history, all focused on one incredible region. We're going to travel from the earliest ancient civilizations all the way to the heart of a global tech hub to uncover the amazing story of Karnataka. So let's dive right in.
Just take a look at this. On one side, you've got these simple stone tools from 3000 BCE, some of the earliest evidence we have of people settling down. And on the other, the complex silicon chips that power, well, pretty much everything in our modern world. And what's so wild is that both of these, they come from the exact same region. That's a staggering amount of history to cover in one place.
So that really begs the question, right? How did this one single area transform so completely? How did it become a cradle for both ancient, foundational culture and cutting-edge modern innovation? That's the story we're going to try and piece together today. All right, to even begin to answer that, we've got to go way, way back. I'm talking right to the very beginning, to the ancient roots that formed the first foundations of this land.
All across this area, archaeologists have found these incredible things. Massive stone structures called megaliths and early tools. All of it points to these thriving Stone Age cultures. And we're not talking about a few hundred years ago. I mean, this is deep history, where complex societies were already starting to take root thousands and thousands of years ago.
Then, in the 3rd century BCE, we see a huge shift. The super powerful Mauryan Empire, led by the legendary Emperor Ashoka, expands its influence southward. And this is a really big deal, because it brings this massive cultural change with the introduction of Buddhism. We can actually still see the evidence today in ancient rock inscriptions. After the Mauryans, the region enters a period that I love to call a relay race of culture. Seriously, this isn't some dry list of kings and dates from a textbook. It's a series of powerful dynasties, each one grabbing the baton from the last and adding their own unique, brilliant layer to Karnataka's identity. Okay, so here's our word map for this race. It kicks off in the 4th century with the Kadambas. They pass the baton to the Chalukyas, who then hand it off to the Rashtrakutas. And finally, the Hoysalas bring it home. Each one is a crucial link in the chain, building on everything that came before. All right, first leg of the race, the Kadambas. And their biggest contribution, it was all about language. They were the very first dynasty to use the local Kannada language in their official records, which was just a huge deal. It was a massive step in establishing the region's own distinct identity. True pioneers, for sure. So the baton gets passed to the Chalukyas. And if the Kadambas were the language pioneers, well, the Chalukyas were the absolute master architects. Their legacy is literally carved into stone, and it has stood for centuries. I mean, these are the people who gave us the mind-blowing rock-cut temples you can still visit at Badami and Ahol. But their real masterpiece, their grand finale, is at Patsadakkal. It's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it truly represents the peak of their architectural genius. Okay, next up in the relay, the Rashtrakutas. And they somehow managed to take architecture to a completely different level. They're the ones behind the magnificent Kailasanatha Temple at Ellora, often called a masterpiece of Indian rock-cut architecture. And think about that for a second. It's not built on a rock, it's carved out of a single massive piece of rock. Just incredible. But here's the thing, the Rashtrakutas weren't just about building with stone, they were also building a literary tradition. Their rule was a golden age for the arts, fostering geniuses like the poet Pampa, who, even today, is celebrated as one of the all-time greats of Kannada literature. And now we get to the Hoysalas. If the Chalukyas were the master architects, the Hoysalas were the ornate sculptors. It's like they zoomed in on the details, taking temple design to this whole new level of complexity and beauty. You can really see their unique style in these masterpieces at Belur and Helebidu. Just look at the level of detail. The temples are covered in these breathtakingly intricate carvings. I mean, literally every single surface is telling a story. It's this super intricate, delicate style that just screams Hoystala. So you take the language, the architecture, the literature, you put it all together, and it leads to the region's imperial peak, the great Vijayanagara Empire. This was one of the most powerful and influential empires in all of South Indian history. Their capital was the legendary city of Hampi, which is now another UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it was this massive, bustling city. We're talking a global hub for trade, art, and these incredible building projects, like the famous Virupaksha Temple that still stands today. But as often happens in history, this golden age didn't last forever. What followed was a period of, well, a great disruption. The fall of the Vijayanagara Empire created a huge power vacuum, which led to new conflicts and eventually the arrival of colonial powers. So, here's how that complex period played out step by step. First, the Vijayanagara Empire falls apart. This opens the door for smaller kingdoms, like the Mysore kingdom, to become more powerful. Then we get the famous reign of Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore, who put up a fierce resistance against the British. But ultimately, after his defeat in 1799, the British East India Company takes control, pulling the entire region into the colonial era. Okay, so after the long struggle for freedom from British rule, we're now in the final act of our story, the birth of modern Karnataka and the creation of a new identity in an independent India. So, once India gains its independence in 1947, there's this huge task of figuring out what the new country looks like. States needed to be reorganized, mostly along cultural and linguistic lines. And for the region we've been talking about, this led to the creation of the brand new state of Mysore. But here's a really key date, 1973. That's the year the state of Mysore officially gets a new name, one that better reflected its deep history and culture. It became Karnataka, the name we know today.
And that, believe it or not, brings us full circle, right back to where we started, with those silicon chips. The state's capital, Bengaluru, has become famous around the world as the Silicon Valley of India. It's this massive hub for IT, for technology, for education, but at the same time, it's still a vibrant center for classical music, dance, and culture, carrying all that rich history forward.
So think about that journey, from being the first to carve a language into stone, to writing the programming code that basically runs our modern world. It has been one heck of a 5,000-year ride, which really makes you wonder, what on earth could the next chapter possibly hold?